Right, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Home Truths. If we're honest, a somewhat sporadic podcast from home, where we really explore and get honest about some of the core themes affecting employee experience today. And today we're going to be getting really truthful about the true value of values. And we're going to do that with a real example from one of our wonderful partners, the guys over at Nest Pensions. If you've worked with home at all, you've probably heard us talk a little bit about our war against the age of beige, our belief that businesses are really holding themselves back by the fact that so many employers sound the same, look the same, feel the same. We've worked out that about 60% of the FTSE 100 at this point have the same values. You know them: openness, transparency, trust. They're everywhere, mostly hanging as dusty corners of your intranet or literal dusty posters on the wall. And it doesn't have to be this way. We know that values, when they're really clearly briefed, really bold and really unique to the organisation, can drive real cultural and strategic value. And that's what we're here to talk about today. But don't worry, it's not just going to be me talking. We're going to be hearing from a couple of our partners as well. So I'm going to introduce them now. So Scarlett and April, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Scarlett, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Scarlett. I'm the Associate Creative Director here at Home. And I've been here now for almost 8 years. So slightly showing my age there. But vanilla values is something we've been combating for a while. And this was a really great example of doing that.
Cool. Thank you, Scarlett. And April?
Hi there, I'm April Clark and I'm the Chief People Officer at Nest.
Hi, thanks so much for joining us, April. We really appreciate you coming in to talk about this today. So let's get into it. We're going to start by asking April if you wouldn't mind taking us back to the very start. So what was happening at Nest that made you think we need a new approach to values? What were you hoping to achieve with the project?
The organisation had been kind of moving along, gaining members and gaining investment, and it had reached a point where it had become financially sustainable and needed to start to compete in an incredibly pressured market with lots of other pension organisations offering similar kinds of products. So we had a new CEO. I joined as the Chief People Officer at the start of last year. And the organisation had done some work to really think about how we needed to shift the culture of the organisation. So that was where we started, with some time that we'd invested thinking about what were the cultural shifts that we needed to make.
Cool, that's really interesting. And it's to hear it grounded in that sort of commercial driver for the organisation as well as that cultural moment is really interesting. Now, I know part of the brief to us was very much about this needed to be something that belonged to everyone. It's inherent in the Nest purpose of financial peace of mind for all. If that's for all, it needs to be for all your people too. And that was a really interesting part of the brief for us. For all comms people right now, listening is a really hot topic that I think we've sort of reached a point of maturity, I suppose, with listening, that it's not just enough to listen, because colleagues have started going, oh, that's nice, you've listened to me again, but hang on, we've ended up with the same old vanilla values, or have you really heard what I was saying? So we took a little bit of a different approach here. I wonder if, Scarlett, you could talk us through the creative approach to the Nest values.
Yeah, for sure. So like you said, it really was co-creation right from the off. I think going to the Nest offices in the first place and doing the immersion session in person with yourself, April, and the team was so great for our creativity to kind of understand who we were talking to and the spaces that you work in. And I think it meant that when we had the quite difficult challenge of engaging all of your organisation in a 1-hour session where everyone sat in rows, but make it really immersive and creative, quite a challenge, but it was really good for us to have that partnership and to have already built such a trusting relationship where we could kind of let go of the creative reins and build something really unique. And where we ended up with Values Town was completely different to any other type of values experience we've ever produced, sort of using AI to create bespoke environments and using audio to create an immersive session where people could interact and respond to questions. Just felt like we were really genuinely listening to people and they felt part of the project from the off.
Yeah, it was a really cool part of the brief, wasn't it, to get everyone involved. And it was really exciting when April and the team asked us to get to co-create with the entire business, because it was a bit of a challenge, but it set such a great intention for the project. And I think that's something that carried on through with, we had sort of intensive testing sessions, everything came back to people who were like, what really is this? And I think one of the more interesting conversation moments for me was when we got into what are we not going to do? What are we going to stop doing if we get these values right? So we put these sort of testing values in front of us, in front of the exec team and in the testing with all the people. And we didn't just look at the positives. I mean, your copy is beautiful, Scarlett. What we write is obviously wonderful. But it's really easy to ask positive questions. I always think it's a little bit harder to say, if we really did this, what would we stop doing? So I think that was a really powerful moment for me. I wonder, April, how did that feel in practice for your team, kind of us really trying to get to the detail and really co-create together? How did that go for you?
Yeah, it was a really important part of the process, not just because we wanted it to be a good product at the end of it and we wanted to make sure that we had a good answer for what our values should be, but actually the process itself was a really important engagement activity from my perspective. So when I joined at the start of the year till the kind of middle of last year when we really started to kick this off, it was quite clear to me that the organisation was lacking a bit in terms of the sense of community that people felt being part of the team. And I think a lot of organisations probably experience this a bit in a world where we've got hybrid working, flexible working, kind of post-COVID. Maybe we hadn't been so clear about what the expectations were for people. My ambition for the organisation is to feel just that, like a community. A community is a place where lots of people have come together because they have something in common. And it's not just about what you get from the community, but it only works as a community if you're also contributing something to it. So the process of going through this this kind of fully immersive whole organization conversation was a really good demonstration of what being part of a community at work could really feel like. And it's kind of given us some skills and some experiences that we can keep drawing on as an organization and have kept drawing on as an organization.
That's really important, isn't it? That in our approach, we were role modeling the values that we wanted to get to. And I love the idea that you've continued doing that keeps going through the organization, because that gets people past that moment of trust of, do you really mean this, particularly when things are quite brave and bold. We've started touching on there, haven't we, what makes the Nest project different, that level of co-creation and that kind of thing. But I wonder if there's anything else, sort of what felt different about this project for you? I don't know, April, do you want to go first? Yeah.
Sure. One of the things that really attracted me to Nest as an organisation, I've worked for lots of different organisations, mostly in financial services throughout my career. And Nest is the first example I've come across. I'm sure there's others, but the first example I've come across of a truly purpose-driven financial services organisation. So our purpose of building financial peace of mind for all, it's quite a big, kind of wide creative scope to that. It's not just about making sure everyone's got a good pension, because financial peace of mind is so much more than that. And what we find is when folks come and understand a bit more about what we're doing and want to work for us, they are all in the same way kind of captured by that purpose. But one of the things that we'd failed to do up until this point really is describe what that meant for people in a way that could help us understand how to work together and how we should be together and how we should feel. So I think everybody will take a purpose of an organization and apply it in a different way, and it will mean something different to everybody. We've got folks that want to work for us because they've come from, different kinds of backgrounds, and they can see how much power it would have in families or cultures like theirs to have, better financial resilience. Other people come because they've come from organizations that have other kinds of impact and they'd like to come and, give something back, as it were. But I think finding a way to actually describe in a common way what that means for how we work together was really important.
That common language is so important to helping people, whether you're new to the business or you've been there a long time, say this, we've got this collective, and it gives a real confidence. And I saw that build as we worked together. We had some really interesting debates about how much we needed to put members and community into the values, didn't we? And I think we got to the right balance point in those behaviours of getting people connected back. What about you, Scarlett? What felt different about this?
I think, again, it's that sort of purpose piece. It was understood from the off that this wasn't just having business values for the sake of it. This was, we really need to make sure that our purpose is speaking to our people in a way that they can understand. And I think particularly the language aspect was really interesting, because we wanted to give people something that did feel like something you could say that felt genuine and authentic and not like you were reading a values poster off the wall. So I think it was the co-creation, the push and the pull and the back and forth, which we really stress tested the ideas that we came up with. And we also did a little bit of sort of inside out thinking of what aren't the values. Okay, we know kind of what we don't want to stand for because we have such a strong purpose. And I think that really allowed us to get a lot more creative with the way we were thinking about bringing values to life. And we could sort of think about what it wasn't just as much as what it was, which felt, completely fresh.
I love that. I really love that. let's sort of move on to where you are now before we wrap up. Is obviously so you launched back in December, January time. For those watching this, whenever you're watching it, it's now June. It's lovely and sunny here. How's it going? What's changed? What's feeling different? How's the embedding going?
I think it's going really well. I think right from the beginning, the kind of comments that people were making to me were exactly what Scarlett was just saying about language. Like, these are the kinds of words that we use every day. And it just feels really natural to include these in conversations and think about what this means for us. And the sentences kind of roll off the tongue. Like, are we being bold enough here? Like, what would it mean if we really cared about this, this outcome? Is there an opportunity for us to drive this harder or to drive further on the things that we're doing? So the language really helped a lot. And then in the last couple of months, we've also been through our usual cycle of going out, using our colleague survey to understand a little bit more about how people are feeling and thinking and, the sentiment. We had some incredibly strong results. So people quite quickly after we put the values out have been able to already see those things coming to life and be able to see them demonstrated in ways that they just hadn't before with our old values. So we had a 23% increase across the whole organisation of people saying they could see the values coming to life in front of them, which felt like a really good kind of validation of the work that we've done together.
That's amazing. Like, what a brilliant point to end on, I think. I do have one last question though, which is, if you had one piece of advice to another company, maybe someone's watching this who's about to embark on a similar kind of project, either launching or embedding some new values, what would your one piece of advice be to them? I'm going to start with Scarlett.
Yeah. I think it would be to forget everything you think you know about values and start with a blank canvas, because I think values is such an overused term, and actually it is all about that purpose and thinking about what you really genuinely value and stress testing, in our hardest moments, could we live up to this? Put everything else to the wayside and really start with a blank canvas.
Love that. April, how about you?
I think one of the things that really helped us actually was that we had spent quite a bit of time before we came to the values thinking about what was important to us about our culture and what we wanted to change about that. And that helped us have a really clear set of principles and kind of guiding ideas for how to articulate that in terms of values. So a good example of that is that often people would say about the culture at Nest that it was very nice, or that people were really kind to each other. And straight away, that felt like something that we wanted to express in our values, but also we wanted to change a little bit. We didn't want to just be nice. We wanted to be challenging in a good and constructive way and in an honest way. And we didn't just want to be kind. We wanted to be kind with an end in mind, to make sure that we were achieving what we wanted to do. And that became the genesis of a really powerful conversation that resulted in the value of caring. Like, what does it mean if you really care about something? And that's a conversation that has continued to stay very live for people. So I don't think we would have got there had we not already been having those conversations about the culture and what we wanted to change and what was important to us. So that was really great groundwork,
I think, you know what, I'd echo that. I think for me, it's that, yes, be bold and be brave and all those things. That's so important. But actually, to be bold and brave, you really need to understand what you're trying to achieve. So your brief was so clear. You could so clearly articulate, this is the culture we're trying to create. This is where we want to get to, that it gave us a platform for bravery, which is a terrible phrase, but I think actually it is really important that briefs, it can be quite easy to skip the briefing stage, but by having such a strong brief, we knew where the points for bravery were, we knew where the points we could challenge you were meaningfully, and it all felt connected back to your purpose, your commercial aims and your strategy. And I think that's, for me, is the piece of advice, is if you can really understand what your outcome looks like, then you can have a great time and be really bold and brave along the way. I think that's it from us. Thank you so much, April and Scarlett, for giving up a little bit of your Friday to talk to us on Home Truths. If anyone is struggling with their values or facing into a values challenge, hopefully you found this useful. Obviously, the kettle's always on here at home, and we'd love to hear more from you. Thanks.